Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Live Atom. Live Atom helps businesses grow online by generating more leads. You can find out more at liveatom.com. Today's show is also brought to you in part by Rochester Area Economic Development, Inc., or READY. READY connects technology-based entrepreneurs to local resources to help support and grow their companies. READY manages a technology incubator downtown called the Mayo Clinic Business Accelerator and administers 2 investment funds that invest in new companies. Go to ready.com for more information. That's RAEDI.com. I'm Amanda Leitner, and welcome to Rochester Rising, where we amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 156 of the podcast today. So today on the podcast, we got to sit down with Chicago native and Rochester transplant Nashauna Johnson Lenoir. We got to talk about her journey to Rochester and the great initiative in the community that she started called Journie Program. Nashauna talks a lot more about the Journie Program in the podcast, but it's an 8-week life skills program for teens that she's developed here in the community. She has a real strong passion for Journie Program, and she saw an especial need in the minority youth in this community to foster a sense of inclusion, especially in youth who weren't involved in sports. So Nashauna is also involved with mentoring and helping youth in the community, especially youth who have musical aspirations. So she brought along one of these young ladies in the community that she works with that goes by the stage name Storm. And Storm shares a little treat with us at the end of the podcast today, singing a little bit of one of her new songs. So be sure to listen into the full podcast and check it out today. So just a reminder, you can find the Rochester Rising podcast pretty much wherever you listen into podcast content. You can find it on our website at rochesterrising.org. It's on Apple Podcasts, which pretty much gets the podcast everywhere you listen in. We're also on Spotify and on YouTube, so you can check us out on any of those platforms. So just a final note from a sponsor before we jump in the podcast today. This podcast is also brought to you in part by Rochester Home Infusion. Rochester Home Infusion provides IV medications where it's comfortable and convenient for you in your home, hotel, or temporary residence so that you can get back to living your life. You can find out more by visiting them at rochesterhomeinfusion.com or by giving them a call at 507-316-0001. That's 507-316-0001. All right, so now on to today's podcast with Nashauna Johnson Lenoir and the Journie Program. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. This should be an exciting podcast.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you for having me.
So I always like to ask, especially people who aren't from Rochester, which is most people actually on the podcast, how did you originally get to Rochester and how long have you been here?
So I originally came to Rochester about 7 years ago from Chicago, Illinois, and I got here in a car with my cat and my plant and my twins in the front seat, and in the back of my car was full of my clothing. And I came here just for a better environment for my children, and that's how I got here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people's story, or my story at least, was I expected to be here for like 2 months, and now it's been like 12 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's similar to your story, if it was going to be like 7 weeks and it's 7 years now.
Yeah. When I first got here, it was more so I'm going to go to a safer environment because I have family, lots of family that live here. And during the time that I came here from Chicago, the violence was starting to increase. It wasn't as bad as it is now, but the violence was definitely increasing. And my kids went to private school, which was kind of expensive. And at the time, the Rochester Public Schools was a very good environment for kids. So I just figured it was time for a change. And we've been here 7 years now.
Awesome. We're just in time today for the snow and whatever other nonsense is going on out there today.
Yep.
It's a bunch of nonsense. So we wanted to talk about Journie, the nonprofit that you started and have been running here. So I'll start by asking you first, what need did you see here in Rochester for something like this?
Wow. So I saw a need for the youth, especially the minority youth in the community, to have some form of inclusion. A lot of the youth that were here were either involved, if you were like a young man, you were involved in like basketball, but what about those who don't play basketball? There was pretty much nothing for them to do. And then the young ladies who were not cheerleaders, because when I first moved here, community education wasn't really big on cheerleading. So I just didn't think that there was any programming available to youth in the community who were not into sports. And I wanted to be able to provide programming for those youth as well. I think that a lot of our youth, not just in the Rochester community, but all over the world, I believe that they lack direction and they lack mentorship, and they lack a lot of skills that are necessary for their development and their growth. And I think that it means a lot to me to be able to provide some of this stuff, because growing up in foster care, I had that support, and that's what helped to mold me into the woman I am today. And so when I see youth who don't have that same support that I received growing up in foster care, it just scares me, and it just makes me want to do something about it.
Yeah, mentorship is so important. And I think, that's such a special message, recognizing the need to give back and pass along, what we received. Because everybody doesn't have it. And that's
absolutely
an unfortunate reality. So you started Journie a few years ago. I thought I had the year written down, but apparently I do not. But you want to talk more about the specifics of Journie and kind of what it offers, because you have an 8-week program.
Yes.
Of different educational offerings, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the Journie program, I started the Journie program back in 2011 here in Rochester, Minnesota at the Boys and Girls Club, when the Boys and Girls Club was on the north end of town, working out of the north building. It's like right next door to, I believe it's called the Gage East building at that time. And that Journie program, it kind of originated from a award that I created back in Chicago called the YLA Award, which is a big thing. If you Google You Can Chicago and their YLA Award, I created that when I was 11 years old. And it's 20 years down the road as of June this past year, and it's still doing remarkable things. And I want to do something like that here in Rochester, just to kind of keep the torch lit. And I started as a YDP to pay off a non-insurance pay ticket. Mm-hmm. And that turned into me becoming a youth development professional for the Boys and Girls Club. And then quickly I became the teen director there, where I ran the Journie program. And the Journie program is a life skills program for teenage youth. And like you said, it's an 8-week program where we cover different topics in our workshops, as far as getting to know me, relations and relationships, coping skills, importance of education, money management, law and legal rights, and where are we going? Who am I is our last workshop, which identifies, the youth will identify with who they are and explain to others who are involved in the program with what they've learned and where they intend to go. And the purpose of the program is to connect them with a lifelong mentor.
Which, again, I think is so important. Having that mentor, having this framework, really kind of valuable information that you're learning, especially who you are as a person, which a lot of us get into adulthood and we don't know who we are as a person. So, yeah, being able to think through that really during very formative years is really, really important. When you're looking back on this program, now you're moving into kind of your next group of students. What's a huge win for you? So what do you want to accomplish each time you interact with the kids?
Oh man, so that's a very exciting question for me. Every group of teens that I work with, I learn something different from all of them, and I uncover different abilities and talents that I have for myself. One of the youth that was in my program back in 2012 at the Boys and Girls Club, her name was Roslyn Moore, and she amazes me every time I hear from her. She received the key to the city of Rochester, and she's currently a student, a junior at the, she's a sophomore at the University of Minnesota on a scholarship. And she won Youth of the Year through the Boys and Girls Club as well. And she's an alumni of the Journie program. And the best thing about working with these youth is just seeing how they blossom after being a part of the program. Many of them go on to do really great things, and just being able to see that the program is actually working is just amazing to me. Being able to see them create futures for themselves. I gave them the skills, but they actually took the initiative to utilize that information and let it work for them. So that amazes me every time I see the youth in the program building on that foundation that I helped them to create while we were in these workshops. So every time I see one of the alumni from the program at work or in school, or they're driving, with a valid license, that just makes me proud, just because of the fact that they're doing things in a positive way, which is great, because they always have the option to go down the wrong road, and they chose the right path. So that makes me happy.
Yeah. No, it's so hard when, you put so much work into these programs. It's so nice to see that someone appreciates it, and, your hard work, because it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, right? And
it is
a lot of what we're doing. And I know you have a real strong passion to do this, and you're the exact right person to do it. So you have an information session coming up soon, right?
Yes.
For the next program. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how people can find more information and what you're looking for?
Absolutely. So we have an information session coming up. It's going to be December 20th. And to get the time and date, all the specifics on this event, you can follow our Instagram page. It's at I Am Journie, and Journey is spelled with a Journie. So that more information can be found on our Instagram page sometime later on this week as we lock in a location and time. But yeah, at this event, the youth will get an opportunity to have an open panel where they can discuss some of the problems that they're facing in school and within the community, and they're going to give their opinions on what they think the community can do, what they can do as students to try and improve some of these issues and barriers that's causing them to not be as successful. Some of these things being unhealthy environments at school. Mm-hmm. And unhealthy environments at home. And hopefully we can get some of the city officials together to attend this teen summit to be able to hear the thoughts of some of our youth and their concerns, and see what we can do collectively as a community to make sure that our kids are going to school in safe environments, and that most importantly, that their voices are being heard. And that's my biggest concern, making sure I create a platform for them to be heard if they have concerns.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the most valuable things is just opening up that line of communication and getting people in one room who are in positions to solve those problems. So yeah, absolutely. And we have we'll put your Instagram handle in the show notes to go along with this, just so everyone has it and is sure of the spelling and everything.
Absolutely.
So that'll be great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about kind of the experience growing Journie program. So you had a little bit of experience doing similar things when you were in Chicago, but what was it like to kind of build this thing from the ground up in Rochester? And, did you have experience doing something like this before, or what did you kind of learn along this process?
Well, I did have some experience growing up in foster care. Like I said, grew up with UCAN Chicago, and while I was in Chicago, I participated in different programmings with UCAN. I was actually the youngest on a board called Hands Without Guns. It was a youth panel of high school students who would go to different high schools and speak about violence prevention in our school and bullying prevention. And at the time, I was only 11 years old. I didn't even really qualify to be on the panel, but I always had this desire to do what's right, and I'm very opinionated a lot. So with that experience, I decided to create an award, the YLA Award, to provide opportunity for youth who were in the foster care system, who were doing amazing things, provide a platform for recognition. So that's what it was mainly about. And like I said, I skipped school every day until my social worker would allow me to speak with her supervisor about creating about renting out a space at my foster care building to hold this YLA award show, which she eventually let me do it down the road. And it was so successful. Like I said, 20 years down the road, and they're raising over $1 million a year from this same award. So, yeah, I mean, the Journie program started from that, and then just coming to Rochester and seeing the need, it just sparked the fire in me again to just really want to give back to the community and, really prevent. I went through, teen pregnancies. I was a teen parent. I experienced physical, emotional abuse as a child growing up in foster care. I've experienced trafficking, domestic violence, mental health issues. I've experienced a lot of this, and by the grace of God, I was able to move on with my life and learn how to cope with all of my different obstacles. And I just want to give back because I see so many other people who are struggling, and I took my talents that I had, which was being able to speak in front of other people. I always wanted to be an actress when I was younger, growing up. I wanted to be just like Julia Roberts. Pretty Woman's my favorite movie. But I wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to pledge AKA when I went to college. But then, like I said, I got pregnant at age 15, so I didn't get a chance to go away to college and pledge AKA. So creating the Journie program, it allows youth to be able to have that sense of belonging and inclusion, because over the course of those 8 weeks in that workshop, they are building relationships with one another and sharing personal stories with one another. So that's one of the reasons why I created the Journie program, so that they can all have that opportunity to feel like they're a part of something. Growing up, I didn't have anything to feel like I was a part of, really. And like I said, when I got a job, my first job was McDonald's, and where it said certificates and awards, I didn't have any, and that bothered me. So I creating the Journie program, by them completing the program and receiving so many hours of life skills, every graduate of the program will be able to receive a life skills certificate and never have to have that McDonald's application or any other application blank at any point in time. So each workshop is personal to me. It has its own personal value. So the Journie workshop is not just me teaching or talking to youth from just my own personal experience, but I also have created a partnership with, I've had conversations to create partnerships with other businesses within the community who have a professional background in education and different topics. So for my law and legal rights, I'm hoping to partner with the Rochester Police Department so that they can come in and support us. And also the Department of the Department of Health. Hopefully they can come in and partner with us in our relationship workshop. And we've already secured a partnership with RCTC and Winona State University for our Importance of Education workshop. And we've also secured sponsorship from Affinity Plus Bank for our money management workshop. So I'm proud of them, and I want to thank those sponsors for being a part. And I also want to thank the Rochester Chamber of Commerce. I'm a new member, and they've welcomed me in, and I'm excited to be doing some great work with them in the future. And I'd like to also just thank the Boys and Girls Club for always allowing us to use their space at the place. And right now, we have a lot of fundraiser events that we do to raise money for the Journie program. We will have a Teen Summit event, which is a fundraiser event where any sponsors or any potential sponsors or anyone who would like to give back to the Journie program, because we like to feed our youth, because most of our meetings are in the evenings, transportation and things like that. So if you feel in your heart that you want to donate back to our program, we'd like to invite you out to our Teen Summit and be able to meet some of the alumni of the program, some of our future youth of the program, and you can also meet some of the youth that I work with on the music side. So most of the youth I work with, they're into music. They're into all different types of arts like dance and things like that. So when I throw fundraisers, I had a fundraiser at the Mayo Civic Center last summer. It was called Summer Jam. And you can find all that information and material on Instagram at JT Music. JT Music is something I created to have a platform for youth in the community to be able to build upon their skills and talents. So I hire youth to work for me and the JT Music Group to elevate their skills and use it as experience on their resumes. So all of the photographers, videographers, the performing artists, the DJ, we use all of these, the hosts, the comedians, the poets. They are all up and coming students and youth that I've worked with in my program. And I help them to just get their career started and just create that opportunity for them to be able to put something on their resume. And I actually brought you a special guest today.
Yeah, it's like that's a perfect transition. But yeah, it is so hard to get started. Like even going back to, something's on a resume and it says, what certificates do you have? And if you don't have any, but it's so hard to get experience when no one will give you experience when you don't have it. So it's like, where do you start from?
Absolutely.
So it's such an important thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll let you introduce.
Yeah. So like I said, I work with a lot of youth in the community. And when I see potential in them, I like to always just give my personal insight and my personal experience and just use my gift to help gift them with their gift is the way I like to think about it. And today I have Chudir here. I'll let her give a brief introduction herself, and then following, she'll share something that she wrote from her up-and-coming album that should be released in early 2020. Her stage name she goes by is Storm. So...
Hello. I'm very excited to be on the podcast today. Thank you for having us. I'm very excited for what is coming in the future because what I see in Rochester is a lot of people or my youth, like friends or people I grew up with, are getting into harder drugs, and I fell into that wagon too. And I thought I would never get out of it. I thought I was going to be something permanent where I'm going to live my lifestyle like this. But I broke out of it with the help of Minnesota Teen Challenge and the support that the girls gave me. They helped me with my mental health issues and my chemical dependency, and also to find the confidence to pursue my music dream. I have a song today that I'd like to share with you guys that I wrote, in a very hard time in my life, and I just would like to share with you guys.
And while Trudeer, just pull that up and get that music ready for you guys. Are there any other questions you have for me as far as Journie? And
No, that was it. I think, like I said, well, where's the best place for people to connect with you and find more about Journie and what you're doing?
Absolutely. Stay tuned. You can always find the latest information on what we're doing on our Instagram at I Am Journie. And I'm always available via email at journey_16@yahoo.com. So that's how I can be reached. So if anyone is interested in booking any of the talent that we have singers, we have rappers, we have comedians, we have poets, we have photographers, we have DJs. So there's a whole list of youth that I work with independently.
Okay, so this song has a lot to do with depression, because I did feel very depressed, and it's very relatable if you feel like you are trapped in your mind or in a relationship or in a facility, whatever. So here I go. Oh, be freed eventually, but each day is not easy. Stuck at the same place with the same people, the same cycle daily. I wake up, I'm still here. Clock ticking slowly is what I fear. Will I make it? Can I take it? This is not easy. I've had enough, I think I'm done, but they don't wanna let me free. They don't see what I see. I guess it's what it had to be. This will not get the best of me, and that I know I guarantee.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I guess too, where can people, find more about you and your music, and where's the best place to connect?
I'm going to create an Instagram of I Am Stormy, and I'll be releasing sneak peeks of my music on there as soon as I can.
That sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and for both of you for coming down here today and talking. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much to Nashauna and Storm for being on the podcast today and for sharing their stories with us. You can find more about the Journie Project on their Instagram feed at I Am Journie, and we have that handle in our show notes as well. And you can find them on their website at journieproject.weebly.com, and we'll have that link in our show notes as well. And if this is a message that rings true to you, you can also donate to Journie program to keep this going in the community, and you can do those donations through Diversity Council. There's a link through the Journie Project website explaining more of these details. So we're always looking for great stories of Rochester entrepreneurs to share on the Rochester Rising podcast. If you know of a great Rochester-based entrepreneur that has an amazing story to share, let us know and send us their name and contact information through our email at rochesterrising@gmail.com. That's a wrap for the podcast today. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen into your podcast content so that you never miss a story of entrepreneurship or innovation coming out of Rochester, Minnesota. We'll see you again next week with a brand new episode.